to the Los Enrica Show.
Like always, we are all in your biz.
Let's go.
1, 2, 3.
Hey, what's going on? What's going on? We're back at you again when we all in your business.
All in your biz.
All in your business, and this is going to be podcast number 3.
Trey.
I believe. Yeah, we on number 3 now. We're enjoying it and having a good time, Javier. So you're going to reach in that hat and this. What you got there, Rika? Reach in that hat.
I need to reach in this hat.
Reach in the hat. What are we talking about today?
Oh.
Mm.
All right. So, I think many of us have experienced going to church, but have we experienced church thugs?
Church thugs? That's what we talk about today?
Yeah.
Church thugs.
Church thugs.
Oh.
I wonder what that's about.
Yeah, so I think we can tread a lot of water on this one. So today's topics, everybody, is going to be church thugs. Wow.
Dangerous.
It's just so many avenues you can start with this here. But so do you have any experiences during your lifetime, not just like recently, but during your lifetime? Maybe some things happened to you, maybe in church and all that you want to talk about?
Sure. But I have to get this off my chest.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
we're saying church thugs, but
Church thug.
armed and dangerous. Ain't too many that can
Bang
bang with
with
us. Straight up, we know ain't. Okay, I just had to get that out of my chest because, we talk about thugs, and shout out to Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Yeah,
Let's
and
see.
Biggie.
Yeah, and Big. Rest in peace to Big. But yes, I have had some experience with church. I grew up in church.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother is an evangelist. Went to church all my life until I became an adult in my 30s. I stopped going as much, but I had to go growing up. So I learned a lot, experienced a lot, saw a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I could mimic a lot, knew a lot of biblical verses, commandments, rules, church etiquette.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be an usher, if you can believe that.
Oh, you used to be an usher?
I did not play. I was one of those ushers that did
You had the shoes
not
and the
play.
gloves and
No,
stuff?
I wasn't a traditional usher. I wore black loafers, black slacks. This particular church, we could wear pants. You weren't condemned. We wore a white shirt and a blue blazer.
Okay.
And I was a lead usher, so I had the walkie-talkie. So there was an usher at the main door that would say, "Hey, we have a family of 4," and I would find seating for the families.
Oh, okay.
And
So you used to let people go to, send people to their seats and
yeah,
stuff.
I would send people to their seats, and if kids were in the back row cutting up and eating candy and snacks, I would send them to their parents.
Oh, you was serious about that thing.
Yeah, because then we had to clean up. We had to clean up the pews after church was over, and I didn't want to clean up candy wrappers and snack papers from kids, church candy. You have your church candy. You put your church candy wrapper in your purse, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Do you know about church candy?
Yeah, because I choked off a piece of candy
What,
one
butterscotch
time.
or the strawberry?
No, it was a peppermint.
Peppermint, okay.
And I promise you, I was eating that peppermint, and I went to the hospital because it felt like, how something be going up, it's stuck in your throat, and I could not get it up. I thought I was going to straight up choke.
I'm so deep in my bag like a grandma.
But my breath
with
was
a
smelling
peppermint.
good, though.
Oh, while you were choking, your
While
breath
I was choking,
minty fresh?
my breath was Gucci, okay?
Okay.
But you know what? Let me see. I can go a long way with this here with church thugs. And the topic church thugs is not nothing derogatory or nothing like that, or the topic says church thugs. It didn't say nothing about being Baptist, apostolic, or nothing like that, but it's just the practices that go on inside the church. That's what we're going to speak on today.
So what makes it thug-like?
It makes it thug-like because sadly, some of the same things that go on in the church, they're happening out in the streets.
What? Like what? Line dancing? What?
No. Like what I mean by that is like I have experienced like cliques, and
Yeah.
things of that nature, and people some church folk can act really, 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 really nasty.
Yeah.
To the point where it makes you not even want to go. Like I was in church, and a lot of people don't know this, but I was really, really, really deep in the church.
Mhm.
People used to call, however it is, they want, to pray for them, and however it is, I used to do sermons and stuff like that. Many people don't know, but so I had to see church from a different lens, the business side and also the spiritual side.
Okay.
Like I had an opportunity to see that, and I seen some nasty stuff.
Nasty stuff. Like
Yeah,
what?
nasty stuff. Like people, and you have to be careful how you esteem people. Because at the end of the day, people they still have flaws.
They're human.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're human. They still
Mhm.
have shortcomings. They still struggle with a lot of things.
Yes.
Like I knew, I'm not gonna get their names out there and however it is, but there were people that were, bishops of the church, and they were struggling with, looking at women, you know.
The flesh was weak.
Yeah, yeah, it was
Okay.
very weak, But the thing was, is like, who am I to judge and all? But
Yeah.
I knew this person behind the scenes, so I also had to see them, when they're standing up there preaching.
Yeah.
So I got like both. I got the lenses from both views. So make no mistake about it, though. That's kind of what kind of drove me away from traditional per se church.
Why?
Um,
Because somebody had a lustful eye, or they liked women a lot, or what?
no,
What
no, no.
made
It,
their
it
issue drive you away from church?
so it was more than that. So another instance, uh, like a pastor was. We used to run a commodities program where we used to feed the community,
Okay.
and so the way it worked is, the food that was left over is supposed to be managed, like refrigerators and stuff like that.
Okay.
However it is, So we had food left and all, and what the pastor was doing, she was selling it.
I know
She
you
was
lying.
no, 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 no. She was selling it, So, um, and granted, like nobody's perfect. I get it, but these are government regulated programs,
Yes.
and you're selling it, selling the food out to, when the food was given to you freely, and they trusted in you to give it out to the community. So this is not the kind of knock people's shortcomings and stuff like that, but just to know that, I just want to put out there that, you know, sometime in church, that's gonna be like the most painfulest experience that you can have is in the church.
Church hurt.
Church hurt is
Okay.
worse than the streets.
Why do you think that? Like, why do you think church hurt hits harder than friendships or work relationships or in general? Like, why?
So I mean, you can tell me, maybe you may agree with this. So going to church is like a hospital for your spirit, right?
Okay.
So typically, when people go to church, like they're hurting or something, they're seeking something, however it may be. But then you have people in the church that intercept that, to make you condemn you, like from what you may wear to church. You may come with, uh, you may just come up with some clothes. You don't know the etiquette or whatever it may be. You just
Mm-hmm.
want to come because you're seeking help.
Yes.
You don't need people in the church. Is what I'm talking about. Church thugs to be judgmental and to look at you funny and sideways or nothing like that. You may not know no hymns or no church songs or however. You know what I'm saying? But you have to meet people where they are.
Okay.
Meet people where they are and don't be judgmental. So if I'm coming in there and I'm saying, hey, I'm struggling with pornography and this and that other, I'm testifying, this and the other, don't come look at me sideways, after service and, and acting funny and everything. However, at least I'm trying to put it out there to say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. You know what I'm saying? Is there anyone, any counselors here or whatever it is? But don't be judgmental.
I agree. And I think in that sense, I think church should be, when people come for prayer or people come to share information, I think there should be specific people that can handle this type of information. It shouldn't just be for anyone or
Right.
a certain bishop or reverend or whatever. I think there needs to be certain people that are spiritually equipped to
Right.
handle this type of information so that people aren't feeling church hurt
Right.
when or if their information is shared,
Right.
because sometimes you may not be ready for that.
Mhm.
I have a situation where I personally remember when I used to usher, and sometimes people would come in, young ladies would come in with, really short skirts or dresses, but the Bible does say, come as you are. And so I remember seeing these women feel like they were being judged,
Mhm.
because, oh, she has on this dress, or, her arms are out. She doesn't have any sleeves on her dress, or,
Mhm.
and so I would say, hey, would you like a lap cover? I would never sit them in the front. I
Mhm.
would sit them towards the middle or the back so that they're
Mhm.
comfortable. And I would say, hey, would you like, and I'll just hand it to them and let them cover themselves so that, if they wanted to use it, they could. If they didn't, they didn't have to.
Right. Right.
But just so that there was something to protect them from being judged by them coming to a place of refuge, and I felt and understood that they were being judged. So I know that they felt it. The eyes, the
Right.
look up and down, and oh, she has tattoos, or they smell like liquor, or this or that. Okay.
Mhm.
So, and I think it's easier to judge people when you can see flaws and sins on the outside. She's
Right.
a single mother. She has all these kids.
Kids.
She must be fornicating. She must be fast. She must be a
Mhm.
Jezebel. But then, or a man that, he may have some outwardly, or somebody may be dealing with their sexuality or
Right.
anything like that where you can see on the outside, but there's so many closet sins and there's so many things behind closed doors that
Right.
people are dealing with
That you can't see.
that you can't see, so
Mhm.
it's not, people can't judge you.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you. That's a good point you made. Like people can't see. Like people struggle with things like behind closed doors. So when you see them, like, oh man, this is brother this is deacon that, this is pastor this and that, however it is, like we all have flaws.
Right.
No one has, like, and I have a problem with those church thugs or people who feel like they got a one-way ticket to heaven.
Yeah.
Like they made it, But, it's sad though because a lot of people they're shunned away from the church when they should be welcomed with arms,
Yeah.
like with open arms, like say, hey, like, yeah, you struggling with this, however, that's how you attract people. We're not getting turning this to a Bible session on, but it says like, well, loving and kindness have I drawn thee. So that means it was just the love and the kindness and just the way people presented themselves. That's what draws people,
Right.
and that can be the total opposite. If you have a stank attitude, you funky, acting funky, this and that other, and whatever, like, hey, this person can only sit here because of that, and
But
this and that
because
other.
their name is on the pew,
Yeah,
so you
okay.
can't sit there.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
your name
you
is on the
can't.
pew.
You
But
can't.
surprising more than not,
Surprise, surprise.
you know, it's just only a selective few, can be in a leadership position and say, "Hey, I'm struggling with this.
Right.
Can somebody pray for me?" You know, that's how without being transparent, it's like you're just basically just living a lie. And I think that's one thing that kind of drove me away with
Hmm.
a whole bunch of larger list of other things. So believe it or not, there is like a higher being than me, like that will never change.
Hmm.
But it's just the people that are in place or call or think they're called, that ruin it for people who are really seeking help. And instead of it being a hospital, it turns to like a I don't know, a judgment session. you know,
Or
and then
or a judgment center.
right, and then next thing you know, like you're up there that they're preaching about something that you probably, saying, "Hey, I'm struggling with it. I need help with this,"
Right.
and even like tithes and offering,
Will a man rob God? Yes, he will. And tithes and
tithes and
offering.
offering. Like, we know that these things are, like blueprints of things that traditionally were done, and however it is. But I can remember one of my friends was going to this church, and they said that they got a bill in the mail. Hold on now.
A bill.
A bill from the church.
Did they break something?
No. So what happened was, my homeboy lost his job,
Mm-hmm.
and he wasn't able to, provide like the same,
Yeah.
like dollar amount,
Mm-hmm.
So it was like around October, and he got a bill saying, "Hey, you're delinquent."
Will a man rob God? Okay.
Like, so he had a job, he got laid off, but they sent him a bill, say, "Hey, like, I'm just paraphrasing, but like, it's been a while, however it is, we haven't received your tithes and no offering and all," and they sent him a bill. So how do you feel about that? I mean, the church send you a bill for tithes and offerings not received, and saying that you in delinquent status. What do you think about that?
Malachi chapter 3, verse 8.
Mhm.
Will a man
Rob
rob
God.
God? Yet
But
you have robbed me.
nah, he wasn't like like he wasn't robbing. Like when he was there and things was going good. However it is, he
Hmm.
gave what he gave what he had, and whatever to the church fund in it. But he didn't have to give no more.
You bring your church, your funds to the church so that there be meat. I don't know. This is my thing. I had a personal experience myself
Oh
relating
wow, you had a personal
to
experience.
offering.
Hmm.
And my mom would give me money. Sometimes she would just have, coins to
Hmm.
give, But, all money spends. Now you'll take the money that jingles, but you'll rather have the kind that folds, right?
Right.
So I had some change, a couple of dollars in change, and I brought it to Sunday school.
Hmm.
And this particular Sunday school teacher told me, "Listen, Reek, you need to tell your mom to give you dollars."
What?
So, my
Wait a
spirit
minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. So the change wasn't good enough. Is that what you're
changed.
saying?
I couldn't do nothing strange for this particular amount of
Oh
change.
Lord.
No, she told me that I needed to tell my mother to give me dollars as opposed to the change that I would bring.
Oh, she's trying to regulate,
And I
huh?
looked at her. I said, "You will never have a problem with this change again."
Hmm.
Because I used to use that change that my mom gave me on Sunday and spent it at the little snow cone church snow cone shop, and
Hmm.
I never brought offering back to the church because that turned me off. Because
Wow.
I figure, as a child, if your mom gives you money, some change, I mean, obviously that's what she has to give you, and it's
Hmm.
going to be used and spent some kind of way, whether it's going to be spent in the church
Hmm.
or at the snow cone shack. But
It's gonna
that
get spent.
it's going to be spent. All
Mm.
all change money, it gets spent. So I did not bring any more money
Wow.
into offering. And every time she would ask, I would say, I don't have money today. Because I didn't. I had it to spend for the snow cone.
Right. They wouldn't have money, but even that experience you had when you were
A teenager,
such a
young
young
person.
age,
Yeah.
but you remember that, so you can almost say you had PTSD from that experience.
You know what? That's a good point because as I became older and I started working, do you know that I would only give $20 bill. It couldn't be in fives, it couldn't be in ones, it couldn't be in two tens. I would always make sure that I had a 20. Now, if you wanted to have a second offering, you better tear my 20 in half
Mm.
and make it. But that was my thing because I felt like what I used to give wasn't enough.
Wow.
And I felt like even as a kid, like I'm being tormented and judged based off of what my mom had to give.
Wow, that's deep.
And so when I became an adult, I was very mindful of how I looked in church. I
Hmm.
grew up in a Pentecostal church, so we didn't wear pants. So
Hmm.
um, this particular church, we didn't wear pants. So as I became an adult and I went to churches that would have that would allow women to wear pants, I would still dress like I was going to, work like work or
Right.
church, but I always made sure that my appearance was put together. I made sure that I never had like red lipstick or red nail polish
Hmm.
because that's a judgmental um, thing for women.
Oh
My
wow.
hair was always, modest
Hmm.
because again, you're being judged. And I don't, and again, for the life of me, and I would carry the 20 and I would give, but I, for the life of me, don't understand how or why women in various religions are, I don't want to say controlled, but are encouraged, forced. This is the rule to cover your hair,
Hmm.
dress modest, no pants, skirts down to the floor,
Hmm.
wear this cover over your head. I don't understand. And the only thing that I can come up with is to not make yourself as attractive to draw men to lust after you. So you have to cover yourself or
Be sought after.
so you're not sought after,
Hmm.
you wear these big dresses, big skirts, you're covering up, you're plain Jane so that so a man won't look at you. And so it's just like I think sometimes religion, the practice of religion made it very unfair sometimes for women. I'm not saying come in with your body parts hanging out and your breasts, your cups running over, anything like that.
Your cups running
Your
over.
cups. But I do feel as if, why can't, if it's cold outside or you're comfortable, why can't you wear a nice pair of slacks to church in a blouse and some heels to church? Why are you looked at or judged because you wore pants, or if you wore a skirt and it's fitted because you may have a body
Right.
and you're being looked at like, ugh, like you need to go home and put on a muumuu and come back to cover yourself. So I've had some church PTSD, I will say,
Okay. Okay.
that has kind of molded me into the type of church goer that I have become today
Right.
as a
Right.
result. Yes.
That's deep. Like you got some testimonies. You got a little PTSD. You got a little bit PTSD because
Turn to your neighbor and say,
I
give him,
got PTSD.
I got PTSD.
I got
Give him
PTSD.
a high five. Give him a
Yeah.
high five. I'm not doing that.
You
No.
know, and then something else that's crazy, to me is that like I get it with tithes and offering, however. But what's really crazy about is that you bring all your tithes and offerings in, however it is, and that local church is going to go to that Bank of America or whatever bank it is, however,
Hmm.
and they're going to put their money in that bank, and then Bank of America is going to use that money and give it to construction companies and all
Hmm.
this, however it is. And
Hmm.
what's so sad about it is that you're depositing your money, your church given church raised money
Hmm.
to a place like Bank of America, and Bank of America can give a less about you, and probably 90 to 95% of the people in the church cannot get a loan from Bank of America.
Oh, that yeah, yeah.
They're
Now we
not
know
loaning
about
to you.
we
They're
know
not
about
loaning to you.
we know about Bank of America.
Yeah, they're not
Okay,
loaning. They're
yeah.
not loaning money to you. So I mean, How does that add up? You're collecting all these monies and everything, and then you're going to deposit into a Bank of America or on these other banks, these Wells Fargo's, and all these banks, and however it is. And guess what? They won't even offer you a loan. So that means the money that you're bringing into there is
Hmm.
like it's being used to do something else or to
Maybe
make
it's
another
for
business.
maybe it's to operate the church. But do you think that everyone should be able to get a loan from church? Like,
Oh,
let's just say you've been going to this church 5 years and you've been paying tithes and offering, and
mm-hmm.
and you need some money to get your car fixed or something.
Definitely.
So you feel as if you should be able to. What is the criteria that you feel as if one could go
Oh,
to
that's a good
the
question.
church and say, based off of what, then I feel like I am deserving of getting a loan from this church?
Well, I think that Okay, that's a good question, Derica. So I don't think personally it has nothing to do with the amount of time that you've been going there.
You don't?
No, if I think if there's a truly a need,
Okay.
if if me and my family's house is burnt down and all,
Okay.
and say, well, you have to be going here a year before we can give to you and all. Well, you only been here 11 months, so maybe you can come back next month and we can, no. I think that it should be on a long base, whether maybe you can get a loan from the church, and or there should be funds allotted where if something like that happens, then you can give that out to as needed. So I don't necessarily think that, okay, if Miss Betty been going there 12 years, she can get the max amount, and then me, I'm just start going there, or if I'm not, because that's what the church is. That's one of the the missions of the church, like for community, what I'm saying, to help people, not just to keep making buildings and giving more money to a building
The
fund,
building fund didn't put a doorknob on it.
however, but
Mm-hmm.
there should be allocated monies for events to happen like this. Now granted, if a member, right, if you're a member, you should be able to go to your church that you're in. If there's a real need, you should be able to talk to somebody, and there should be monies allocated, to, I mean, not to abuse the system, but you should not be getting turned around if you're at a local church, and there's nothing to give. I think that's crazy
So
to
if
me.
I came to you and say, Bishop Los, I need to get I need a
You
loan.
about to say my hair.
Yeah, I was.
You about to say my hair
I need to
does.
hold something. Can you loan me $500 so I
No,
can
it's
get
got to
these
be proven though.
these
Like a
micros?
bill. Like a eviction
People make
notice.
up bills all the
And
time.
listen, we'll have to let the
I have a
Lord deal with that.
hardship. I need it. So okay, so
Do you think that should be a criteria?
I think possibly because
Oh.
you may have a church that may not have it like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to a mega church, yeah, I could see that. Or you go to maybe a medium sized church where everybody, gives and things of that nature. But if you have a small church,
You still gotta
they,
make sure your people good though.
how? If you only have
Nobody in a church
25
should be.
members,
Listen, okay, I've been in a church where it was less than people than that.
okay, so how
You
can
know,
you get a loan? How can you get help? Now, I can see if there was a food pantry or clothing, if you needed clothing donated, okay, that's easy. But to ask a church that may not have it for money to close on a house,
well, let's make. No, I mean, no, no. Listen, that's not. See, that's not a necessity. Like
closing
closing
on
on
a
the.
house is not.
I'm talking about like you got put out of your home. You don't have nowhere to stay. You're homeless. You don't have nothing to eat. You have children. Like they don't have. It's cold outside. They don't have coats. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about something like that. I'm not talking
Okay,
about
something
closing
that's
on the house.
easily attainable. You're
Right. I'm
meaning
not talking
things
about
like that.
closing on a
Okay.
house, putting a down payment on a car, or nothing like that. And you know what I'm saying? Like maybe if you needed that car to some point degree where say, hey, I need this for.
Well, you can borrow the church van. Would that be
Okay, well you
okay?
can borrow the church van,
Okay.
but there should be resources. And I know it may get a lot of people ticked off when I say that, but if you are operating a church or in a church and you're there and then you're putting into it and then you can't take out, which means is like, okay, I have a real problem going on, you can't take out, you may want to stop and think where you're going,
Hmm.
because that means even if the church is small, they don't have, can anybody donate, if you need $200, can anybody donate $5 or $10? Brother such and such and such are in need. Now, while we out, testifying amongst the community and doing community works and all how like that, there should not be not a one person in that church that's struggling like that. None.
But the majority of the churches are the population is women, right? And let's talk about old school parenting and old school people. They will give their tithes and offering first, right? They get their paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
They will pay their tithes and offering and
Okay.
then figure out the utilities,
Oh, no.
figure out the bills, figure out
No.
all of that. And so now there's a hardship because you've given your tithes and offering first,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as opposed to taking care of yourself.
Now listen, I think in everything you have to use wisdom.
Okay.
Okay. So if you getting, if you're giving 10% of your tithes,
Okay.
okay, maybe your offer need to come down, okay,
Mm-hmm.
because wisdom will say, I need lights, I need something to eat.
Yeah. And your
My
offering
kids
could
got
be acts of service as opposed to financial.
exactly,
Yeah,
or it
that
can
is
be
true.
smaller amount, or maybe you don't have to give. You know what I'm saying? You have to. You can't put yourself in a bind where I have seen it where people just give to the church, whether that be monies or that be time and service, and then your own house ain't in order.
That's
Okay,
true. But then you'll get that bill.
no, but you gotta listen. I don't care what works that you're doing out there, what church you in, what religion, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is, you have to have your house in order. That means don't come sitting up in my face and you at home and you bickering with your husband or your wife and however it is and y'all down each other's throats and then you want to come to church talking about praise the Lord. You know what I'm saying? Get your house in order. Don't come to me talking about, yeah, you got to save money and do this and this and that other, however it is, and then you over here filing for bankruptcy and everything, and we giving money to you. Like, get your house in order. I mean, you have to have everything in order in your house.
Okay.
Okay, we know things are gonna happen and all, but that go back to being transparent. Don't talking about like I knew this one pastor. Like they like the younger kids. Don't make sure you ain't out here sinning. You ain't ever having sex and doing all this, and then the daughter was having like more babies than a little bit. I'm like, come on.
Their house
Get
wasn't in order.
your house not in order. And you know what I'm saying? And then the closer you get to people and you get to know them and all,
Mm-hmm.
you'll come to find out that people are not all squared away as that you think they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they're not squared away, but it takes a upright man or woman to say, you know what, I don't have it all together, but you know what, each and every day I pray
Mm-hmm.
that like I can get myself in together in order and God can make me better each and every day.
Right. I agree. I agree. I think that many times and roles in the church is not meant for everybody. It's like applying for a job. You may not be qualified, but hey, it works at that particular time. You can get a crowd going. You can spit out some verses, and it's good for that moment. But it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone to lead people who need help, lead people who
Seriously.
need refuge, lead people who may be dealing with some things. That is not for everyone to be able to do that, because these are delicate lives and souls that you're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with. And so that's a charge to you if you take on this role
Right.
and you're leading people. And I think that's a lot of times people get into cults and
Mm-hmm.
they follow certain people that may not be equipped to lead, but then they end up you
Right.
know
All falling in the ditch.
falling in a ditch or in part of a cult, and they're living on a compound and doing like, what happened?
Right.
Because they were lost souls that felt as if they were following the shepherd
Right.
who was completely lost. So again, like, it's okay to seek refuge in church and religion. However, equip yourself so that you know or have a better understanding for yourself,
For
because
yourself.
anybody can tell you anything,
Right.
and you can go along with it. Ketchup goes on hamburgers. It goes on hamburgers. And all your life you've heard that.
And then you start believing.
You start believing you can
Ketchup
only eat
go
ketchup with
on
your
hamburgers.
hamburger. And then one day somebody doesn't put ketchup on their hamburger. Got to be almighty.
Mm.
You going to the pits of hell because you didn't put ketchup. So understand that everything is just not, it's not one-sided.
Right.
One size does not fit all for everyone.
Correct.
And you have to learn to know for yourself.
Know for yourself. Not and that's excellent point you made there. Know for yourself. Read whatever it is. Read it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if that's whatever route that you choose to take, make sure you understand for yourself. Like, you don't need nobody to, to add, because if you're not careful, people will add something in a minute. Like, I can remember me growing up, however it is, and you hear the song, um, like money is bad, like, for money is bad, this and that other, I can remember for a point, I'm really like, how's money bad,
Money is the root of all evil.
Yeah, but yeah, the money is the root of all evil. But actually it says for the love of money
For
is
the
the root of
love
all
of money.
is the root of all. I mean, like, if you're putting your area and everything into this, where you love it so much you can't live without it, and however it is, it says for the love of money is the root of all evil. And just one single word can change the whole perspective of what you're reading.
Yeah.
So read it and know it, and study for yourself, and not just, and believe that there is a higher being, no matter what you believe, and it's not the person. The person is just a messenger. You know, don't forget and leave your eyesight off the bigger picture. Like the bigger being, whomever you believe in. So um, that was real big for me. Like when we came with that title, Church Thugs. Because some people, I mean, it's bad out there, and like I've known people that treat other people unfair, knowing what they're doing is wrong. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
Knowing what they're saying is wrong, but they rather see somebody suffer, and how it is, and then have the audacity to say, you know what, I'm gonna pray for you. I think that word "I'm gonna pray for you" they just took this like too far. If you are in some kind of position where you can be a blessing to somebody else, but you rather say, "Oh, I'm gonna just pray for you," and all, like, shame on you. If somebody asking, and I'm not saying that for everybody, but so people are so quick to say, I'm gonna just pray for you, however it is, which they probably never do it anyway.
Mm.
Let's be real, but if they ask for $10, however it is, and you just won that scratch off at the lottery store,
Before you came to church.
and you had that drink, that you won a little something, however it is, be that blessing to that person.
So
there.
you saying it's okay if you've gambled before,
Yeah, we ain't
and
gonna
had a
talk
little
about
shot,
that.
had a little shot of liquor
At least a
before
little
you
shot.
came to church, and you won some money off a scratch off,
Mm-hmm.
that you need to give a little bit for tithes and offering, and then you can you can give some of those winnings to the person that needs it.
You could. Why not?
Oh, okay.
But you would say, "Oh, I'm gonna pray for you."
Yeah, because God don't want me to give this gambled money.
Yeah, He don't want me to
These
get this
winnings.
gambling money. You'll be surprised. Like I know people today actively in church in like leadership positions and however it is. Guess what? They be at a casino right along with me.
Meet me at the casino.
Okay, they be at the casino right along with me, and you know what? They go to the liquor store early in the morning.
Oh,
Okay.
so that nobody can see
So
them.
nobody can see. So what I'm saying is people struggle with things and all. And guess what? It's okay. But be transparent with it and don't condemn people that come out, just come out just in the open and say, "Hey, I'm struggling with this."
Because that takes a lot of
That
courage.
takes a heck of a lot
It
to say
takes
that.
a lot of courage to get up and say, "Hey, what?" Remember on social media where the lady said she testified and said
Oh,
she was
no.
sucking so
Yeah.
she was sucking
If
so much meat, and they
Yeah.
had to turn her mic off.
they had to turn the mic off, but listen, she need to get it out.
She needed to get it all out.
She needed to get it out, and I think that's the shortcoming of church folk today. It's like,
Jesus.
what I'm saying? That's how people they get over. You know what I'm saying? That's how you draw people.
Yeah.
When you have like some of these young cats out here, or even some of these old ones too, to say, you know what, I struggled with this. You know what I'm saying? And then this is how I got out. You know what I'm saying? And and the Lord helped me get this way. That's how you draw people. Because then they can say, well, man, I know Los, you know what I'm saying, and this and that, but dang, he struggled with that, but he got enough courage to say this would not, that's how people become overcomers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But you got to be transparent. You can't come up in there like, You know, it's like I got everything straight, everything good with me. I'm Gucci. Let me tell y'all how to get to heaven. You know what I'm saying? To the better place or whatever it is. Just follow me, cause I got the remedy.
I'm an honest hoe, and all my hoes is honest. So
Yeah, I mean, like, please
you have to be
get out of here. You know,
yeah.
and I know some people may not like the podcast, however, but guess what? When all in your biz, when me and Rika thought about, we're gonna talk about the things that need to be talked about. You know,
Yeah.
that need to be addressed. And I know somebody's probably in a secret corner listening to this and all, but just take this time to think. Like, am I that person? Am I that church thug?
Mm.
Am I living the principles of, being, being that neighborly person? You know,
Yeah.
am I in a clique? Do I condemn people? Am I paying all my tithes and offering on? Am I sending out letters to people who delinquent? And why?
Maybe you're the church secretary, and that's your job.
Okay. Okay, maybe that is your job
That's
and
my
all.
job.
But then again, somebody told you that this is right and all. But again, look it up for yourself and all. And don't be afraid to speak up, Because sometimes, like, I've seen people just follow another person just because.
Yeah.
Like people who want to be like, and I don't have anything wrong with being an armor bearer for like your leadership and all and something like that. I think it's honorable. But your life, you have a life too, okay?
Unless you want that to be your life. If
Now
you
you
want to
got you got a
commit your
life,
life
especially
to,
if you married or something like this, or you got obligations, just kids. They should go hungry and all because you driving the pastor all around the city and everything. However, when you get home, it's like 9, 10 o'clock at night.
yeah,
Come on.
yeah.
Y'all
Oh,
don't
let
y'all
the
didn't
church
hear
say
me.
amen.
Yeah, I'm
Amen.
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 Yeah. Amen.
It's more than just us too. Everybody's saying amen.
Amen.
Even the people on the airways, you say amen.
Amen.
But you got in everything you have to use wisdom and all,
Yeah.
And so this is like very dear to me and all, like you can't just, and I've seen it. I've seen like church thugs and people just think they can say and they can just do whatever. And, like they may not be cussing in public. I mean, on the pulpit, but their actions and all how it is, and
You
it's
might
just
as
like
well.
they might as well
You
be.
might as well.
They might as well be. So those are some things to think about. So definitely, I have had a lot of things kind of happen to me that kind of it was like it made me bitter.
Yeah.
I was going through a situation and all how it is, and um, I called myself like say, I'm gonna call the pastor and whatever it is and however it is, because they wanted to. They wanted to buy a building. We was in a small church at the time. They wanted to buy a building, and granted, it was only like about 6 families.
Mm-hmm.
6 families. So
Very small church.
very, very, very small.
Okay.
So I'm like, how? So I'm just fast forward a little bit. We took a vote and all. However, who all agrees? And I said I don't agree, cause we barely making it here.
Mm-hmm. So
Like
you couldn't get a loan from your church with 6 families.
I mean, they better come up with something.
Okay.
I'm like putting in a whole bunch of work at the time, or
Okay.
however it is. But and I remember the pastor was sending out things and wanted people to donate and whatever it is and however it is. And I never forget she sent something out to a church, and this church so kindly wrote us back and said, you should be seeking money from your community where you gainfully employed at and people in your area. I think she was reaching out to somebody in another state. And the pastor at the other state kindly said, like, I'm just paraphrasing, like, I hope you well in all your endeavors and all, but understand that your funds that you're getting and that you're trying to get, they should come from your community.
So she was reaching out to borrow money or ask for money from someone
get that
in another
building.
to get that building. So she
Right.
didn't have the money for it.
Yeah.
So the tithes and offerings wasn't hitting.
They
and
wasn't
she-
shaking on it. They weren't shaking on enough.
So she wasn't in a position financially
Right.
to even go to the other church.
But it was awakening.
Okay.
Because what the pastor was saying made sense. because you're the funds that's available in your area in the community that you serve in. That's where definitely where your funds should be coming from, whether it be from like if they got the government, the local government, maybe social services or something, however it is. But the problem was we wasn't even out there in the communities like that.
Oh, okay.
So it was a reality check because once you're out there and you're doing stuff and people seeing you, sometimes that opens up the door for like funds and people want to be a part of what you're doing.
Right.
But this person was just selling commodities and doing all this just shady grady stuff and how it is. And I just like, it came to a point I said, I have a problem with that. And I said, I disagree. We should not get this building on because we don't have enough, we don't have enough resources to do it. And those people looked at me like I was crazy.
Oh.
They looked at me like I was crazy, but I stood my ground. And that was the beginning of the woes at their church and all. But, you live and you definitely learn.
Yeah.
Church thugs. Church thugs. But I'm going to pray for you.
That's all I got. I'm going to pray for you.
I just wanted to scratch off, but I'm going to pray for you.
I'm going to pray for you.
Yeah, I'm going to give you, this and that, and I'm going to pray for you.
Let me ask before we close, since we're talking about church thugs, do you think...
I'm going to pray for you.
What about cussing church folks? We're not saying, well, God said ass, or damn in the Bible is an ass. And we talking about cussing, like Kirk Franklin cussed his son out. What do we think about cussing church folk? Or are we saying people are human? People.
I can't even comment on that. Okay. Because I know, listen, people have feelings, they got emotions, they got all this stuff here. And remember, we all have sinned and fall short. So if that's what come to your heart and your mouth and come out of your lips, then, who am I to judge? Like, literally, who am I to judge because I say a combination of cuss words and you only say one? Like, who am I to judge? If you out there, you married and you messing around with Deacon Larry, like, who am I to judge? I don't have a heaven and hell to put you in. I don't. You know what I'm saying? And I think with that being said, with the cussing, it's like, I can't answer that question. You know what I'm saying? We fall short every day. Every day, and although some people may think they smelling good, they got all together and all, but they blow by wind smell like boo boo. Okay. That blow by wind.
Yeah.
When you going by and like that's, it smell like boo boo. And then some people want to admit like, man, I smell pretty bad. Maybe I need to shower. And then you got them church thugs and people out there saying, y'all smell that? It's coming from your rear end. Okay? You smell like boo-boo. So, yeah. Well, so what do you think about that before we wrap this up? What do you think about the cuss words and all?
I know a lot of cussing church folk. I will say that. And they can put some words together.
Combos.
Yeah. Some
Some combos.
1-2 punches. Some, knock you out. TKOs, but
then lay their hands on you, try to revive you.
And it's hard for me to accept someone praying over me that I heard and know.
You know for a fact.
Can cuss like a sailor.
And their hands smell like, the palm of their hands smell like cigarettes.
Yeah, a
black and mild.
But again, maybe a little 20. I don't know, but what I can say is that everybody shouldn't be laying hands on folks.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother episode. You're
and
right.
We may have to make a part 2, and everybody shouldn't be laying hands on folks. And I think people slip up, but I think what's important is to try not to cuss. Try to make an effort not to, especially if you're in that position. Try to use other words.
Or cut the mic off.
But cut the mic. Those are some colorful words, but just try to source for other words that you can use, other than certain words. that shouldn't be used.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. I agree with that. But I ain't judging.
No, I ain't
If
judging.
it's if a cuss word slip out, I may say, oh, however, and you know, just like, listen, God working on me in that area. Somebody laying their hands on you and it's smelling like black and miles, just be like, hey, the Lord's still working on
No, when I start falling back, they think it's the spirit, but I'm falling back from that breath.
me. I fall back for that breath and I'm dehydrated
Ooh,
for
I'ma
all that
just
Patron the
if
day
I just hit
before.
the floor, then you just think it's the spirit. Just understand it's the spirit. It may not be the Holy Spirit. It may be those distilled spirits that you was drinking and blowing in my face. But
Exactly. And
yeah,
hurry up and cover up Sister Rika over there
yeah,
because her dress is coming up a little bit.
yeah. The ushers need to be
They
on.
need to be on their job,
Yeah.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because old dirty Larry over there, he waiting for somebody to fall out and be slain.
So he can see these
You can
these
look at the goodies.
draws, these modest panties that I have on.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
ushers, be on your job, okay?
yeah.
You see somebody, start to fibrillate a little bit, and they about to go for a KO,
We fall down.
and you better
But
get
we
that blanket or
get up.
something. Take your shirt, your jacket off or something on
We
because
fall down.
Dirty Larry over there,
But we get up.
he
No,
may he
I,
may be looking.
let me tell you. I'm going to say this. I had an ushering experience one time. It was raining at church, and I was ushering this Sunday. And
You got a lot of stories there.
I do, and it's some fun. Church is funny. If you sit back and look and just pay attention, church
On
is
and off switch.
hilarious.
On and off switch.
So it was raining this Sunday, and the male ushers were taking umbrellas out to get, people out of their cars to help them. This lady, she was very large.
Large. Like Big X the plug large?
Like,
Huh?
yeah.
Okay.
So ushers went to the car to get her.
Mm-hmm.
It's raining.
Okay.
And I don't know what happened between steps 1 and 10, but she was on the ground.
Oh no.
And they could not.
They couldn't get her up?
They couldn't get her up. They couldn't stop her from falling, and they could not
You better
get
not
her
even
up.
listen, you better not try to stop her. Just let her fall and just recover her,
Her
but they
whole
couldn't get her up.
side was muddy and wet. But a lot of times ushers get hurt in church trying
yeah.
to, when people are shouting, trying to move people from around them so that, they don't fall and hurt other people. And you can strain your back trying to brace yourself for them. And they're doing all that wild shouting and however the spirit leads you. But if I'm ushering and you get a little buck and you starting to, move like a bucking horse, like a mechanical bull, I'm going to let the spirit
Do what it do.
do what it do and lead you. And either if you hit the floor, the pew, or someone else, let the spirit lead you. That's all I got to say. Because I'm not going to hurt myself trying to contain what you and your spirit have going on.
You better make sure they covered up though.
Oh, they'll be covered.
Because then,
We had full-size sheets to cover folks up. So
You need
you
a
can
quilt.
you can open them up and pop them and snap, and it'll cover up their whole body.
yeah, you
Big
need
or
that.
small.
You need that because, it can get kind of, I've seen some real close situations.
Oh, yeah. It happens.
Some real close situations. But, we may have to do another part on this church thugs here.
Yeah,
there's so
let's
much.
do part 2 where we can tell stories from church. I got a lot of stories.
I got some stories too. I was trying to be
Hilarious.
modest, however it is, but I got a lot of stories about these church thugs and all, however it is. And, if it applies to you, then so let it be. When you go to the room and maybe you can come back out and be a better person and all. But I want you to know that there's people out there that look, they see, and they watch. And I know a cigarette when I smell it. I know a black and mild when I smell it.
And I know a church bus driver, if they spirit ain't right, if you on duty to pick people up for church,
You
and
be
your
speaking
spirit
all
ain't-
fast and your head
spirit
going
ain't
back.
right, and you don't want to blow the horn more than once, and you backing up before they can get to the front door, don't drive the bus that day.
Don't drive it at all, okay?
Don't.
Because somebody gonna get hurt.
Because your spirit ain't right
It ain't right.
to do that job. Just don't, okay?
ain't right.
And you know who I am talking
Yeah.
about you. You know who you are. If your spirit is not right, don't drive that church bus.
You better not drive it. Because you're the first thing that people, the interaction they have before they even get to church.
You done ruined these folks' day because
You
you
didn't-
didn't want to wait.
Yeah, you didn't ruin the day already. You ain't got no music on. You're going fast and your seatbelt ain't on. Okay?
And if they ask you to stop them by the store after church, don't look at them and roll your eyes.
And turn that AC on too.
Turn it on.
Cause they
Yeah.
hot. They sweating bullets in there. I looked to see a church van the other day. They was in there sweating,
Stuck to the seats.
stuck to the seats, you know. And I seen somebody in there with Jerry curl. It looked like it was on flames. But at any rate,
Okay. Okay.
church thugs. We gotta do part 2.
We'll do part 2. We'll tell stories. Stories from the pews.
Yeah. Or if you have a story, you know, you have a church story, definitely you can just let us know, you know, reach out to us,
Send
you know.
us an email. Tell
Send
us
us an
about
email. Send us an email, and then when we circle back, you know what I'm saying, we can either maybe hit you up, you know, just have you on live, or we can just tell you a story and all. But there's some stories out there for the church that need to be told.
it. The church has the best stories. I
They
will
have the
say.
best stories. But all in all, I'm not knocking the church.
No, church is good. Church
Church is good and it's
all-
needed, you know.
It is. It is.
We're talking about the negative part of it, you know, the part that people know about but don't talk about,
Yes.
because like that's what we do here, you know. So until next time, you know, I am Los,
And this is Rika signing out.
and we're all
In
yo